Right?
Start working.
Oh, no.
Hi everyone, I'm Trami with Chopsticks Alley. We are back with Chopsticks Alley Talk Live. And I'd like to introduce my co-host.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer, your lifestyle editor here and co-host at Chopsticks Alley.
And we have a special returning guest today. Now, Assembly member Kalra. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to see how Chopsticks Alley Talk has grown and has really informed the community, and it's great to be back.
Episode 13 today.
Wow.
Lucky number 13.
Lucky 13.
Our very first episode, we had our guest was then a council member Kalra with us. So I think he brings us good luck. And because today's the 13th, I think we'll be okay. Right?
That was a long time ago. But so today we have a special sponsor, again, returning. It's Thomas Vo. He's a broker associate with Morris Willens Realty. You can visit him online at thomasvorealtor.com or reach him at 408-505-6278. And so Thomas is a resident of the Bay Area and has over 17 years of experience in the real estate industry, negotiating millions of dollars, including 4 years of direct experience with short sales and over 100 transactions completed.
So contact him because he'd like to be your realtor for life, and he also brings cookies.
I know.
Right?
Who doesn't love cookies,
right?
Who doesn't like cookies, yeah.
Anyhow, for today's topic, he's a perfect sponsor for us because we're going to talk about housing.
Yes.
And most importantly, in the Vietnamese household and many Asian households, we have multi-generational housing, right? Where many members of the family, from grandparents to parents to kids to grandkids, right?
Yeah.
Great grandkids, right? Live together, and how it affects the community, the way we see each other, right?
So, and with the recent floods in San Jose, on behalf of Chopsticks Alley, we would like to extend our warmest wishes and support families displaced by the floods in San Jose. It's been very difficult for those who were impacted or evacuated, and we would like to give regards to the shelters, the high schools, community members that have been lending a hand throughout this entire rough time. So thank you so much for joining us here today, and thank you so much to our community for providing the support.
Yes, and Chopsticks Alley has joined forces with the Rotary Club and also Sabor del Valle to do a flood raising fundraiser. And if you go onto our site, you can get that information. And so far, we've raised almost $40,000.
Wow.
Yes, last I checked as well.
Yeah,
It's amazing. It's been amazing to see the outpouring support from the community, both in terms of philanthropy, people donating their resources, giving supplies, but also the Saturday after the floods, I went out to volunteer. There were over 1,000 people that came to volunteer.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
I think we're showing the spirit of San Jose, which is beautiful.
Great. So speaking of households, do you live with your parents and everything?
I live with my father. He's a little older. He has some health issues. But even when I came out of law school, I lived with my father. And I remember some of the lawyers I worked with were like, "Oh, you live with your parents?" I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, isn't that normal? If I didn't, my community would be like, why are you living in the same city and not living with your family? What's wrong? Something wrong with the family?" And so, in fact, there was a point a few years after which we had 10 people in our household. My uncles and aunts, one of my dad's youngest brother, youngest sister, each of their families had 4 people in them, and so there were 10 of us in the household for a period of a few years.
It's like chaos. But it's a normal thing, right?
Yeah.
And the reason we invited you, besides your personal experience living in multi-generational household, is also you're currently serving on 5 committees, and one of them is the Housing and Community Development Committee. And that's important because we'd like to hear that from a state perspective, how that would help us, especially in Silicon Valley. We have a housing shortage and the prices are unbelievable.
Yeah, multi-generational households are also on the rise. So according to the latest research done by the U.S. Census, over 7.5 million children live with at least one grandparent, which is more than 10% of the under 18 population. So there's a growing trend. It's always been popular in the Asian community as well. Right? But now even Hispanic communities, even Caucasian communities are resorting to multi-generational households, and for several different reasons. And we're going to go over that in today's episode as well.
Sure, and we would love your feedback. So type in questions if you have them and comments.
Your experiences.
Yeah.
Did you love living with them? Did you hate it? Are you on your own now?
Tell the truth. We want to hear it. So let's ask Ash the first question then. So let's say when you decide to get married, will you be living with your father?
I don't think that'll be just my decision.
Smart answer, right?
But at the end of the day, I love my father. He does need someone there, not all the time, but he's by himself. And so I hope whoever it is I marry would understand the relationship I have with my father, and I'd want her to have a great relationship with my father as well, so it wouldn't feel forced, but they would also understand the need for us to take care of our parents because we are because of our parents.
Yeah. So that the belief of putting our elders into a nursing home is still a little bit of a foreign thing for us, right?
Yeah, it's looked down upon, and if you were to put your parents in a nursing home, you would be very disgraced.
Like a bad daughter.
Yeah, you'd be a bad daughter.
I went to 2 nursing homes on Friday because I'm actually chair of the Aging and Long-Term Care Committee as well. And
you have it all covered.
Yeah. Well, you have to take care of our elders, and it was interesting. Obviously the demographics there don't necessarily reflect the demographics of Silicon Valley or San Jose. You don't see a lot of Hispanics or Asian American elders there, and I think that's part of the reason is that there's an expectation that we take care of our own. But at the same time, it's important for folks in the Asian American community to understand that there are resources to help you, even if you are taking care of your loved one at home. Both financial and support systems, because it can be very stressful too, especially if your loved one has health issues.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to kind of negotiate that.
Yeah. So to realize that it just depends on each family and each need, and not to judge each other for it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons that come with living in multi-generational households. For instance, some pros would be you have to support one another. Kids learn to respect their elders. Elders learn how to, be hip with the modern times. And there's a lot of course, financial needs too, right? You guys are able to share a lot of the costs. But cons, I realized, because myself, I used to live in a multi-generational household where my grandparents were there, my parents were there, and then we have like 4 different siblings. And so privacy, there was a lot of privacy issues.
And we were talking about that when we were, and for some reason, Vietnamese moms don't close the bathroom door when they're using the bathroom. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Do you experience that with your
no,
culture?
No, but I will tell you this. I imagine it's much harder for women than for men. I think that even in a multi-generational household, I think men have more independence and more ability to have their own spaces, at least from what I've seen even within the Indian culture, and I imagine it's somewhat similar in the Vietnamese culture.
Men are more likely than women to accept and live in multi-generational households.
Because they're being taken care of.
I mean, another issue that many families face living in multi-generational households is when you're going out and you finish college, for instance, you are expected to be on your own, to live on your own. For you to be returning to your family, it's also looked down upon in society, because it feels like you're not ready. You're not, even though you graduated college, you're not ready to be out there on your own. Yeah,
it's not good. But in our culture, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, you could be married, not married, doesn't matter. Your parents are thrilled that you're living with them.
That's right.
So it's this conflict, right? And that's the thing with the young Vietnamese American population that live here. We live with this duality of trying to please our parents, but also not look bad, and also gain our own independence. And that's the struggle. That's what we want to talk about today, right?
Well, in terms of housing as well, so for me, a lot of growing up, we moved around a lot, and so we were renting from place to place. Did you guys have to experience that? Moving from place to place often, being relocated?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the first place, when I was born, actually, I was born in Canada, and when my family first went there with my older brother, and he was a baby at the time, they had no place to live, because although my father got a scholarship for his studies, it didn't cover housing. And so you can imagine my mother as a newborn and going to strangers' homes and staying in them, but it was out of the kindness of strangers, whether it was professors or friends that my father met at the university. They would stay 2 weeks here, 4 weeks there at different people's homes, until finally we got our name on the list of a new affordable housing apartment complex, and that's where they lived. And that's when I was born. That's where I first lived. And so I'm a big proponent of affordable housing to create that stability when people are moving around.
Yeah. I think we have a question from the audience.
Yes, Carolyn asks, why do so many Vietnamese households rent out spare bedrooms from their home? What are the pros and cons for this, and both for the landlord and the renter?
I've seen this a lot where my friends or even sometimes family members, relatives, would look for like rented homes, kind of like Airbnb, right? The old
Except
school
it's
way.
permanent.
And I think that like sometimes you'll see, you know, they renovate their garage into a living space as well. I personally don't like it. I feel like it doesn't make a home a home. But people who do, it's mostly out of financial necessity.
What do you think on from a law perspective?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's very challenging because, you know, I even saw this when I was campaigning, knocking on doors, and I ran into a lot of multi-generational, but also, as you mentioned, renting out a garage, renting
Share
out
phone is what we call it.
and it's out of necessity. This is the most expensive housing market in the nation right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't look down upon those that have to do it because they're surviving, but there are legal issues with it. In fact, you mentioned earlier on with the floods, you know, there are some people that have not come forward for help because they're not living in a legal situation.
Yeah, and
And it's
even
a big
if they
problem.
do, they get turned away.
That's right.
Because on the rent or the lease, it's only one person, one family that lease. So that person received $3,000.
That's right.
And from the city, but the other 4 families that live there, they didn't get anything.
Yeah, so it's a catch-22 because you definitely want people to abide by the law, live in places that are to code, because that's why the rules are there to make sure people are safe.
Yeah.
But if we're not providing enough housing for our entire community, what are you going to say to someone that otherwise would be out in the street or otherwise be moving from place to place?
Yeah.
They want stability. We all want stability.
Right. So one good legal thing that they did put in is they allow people to build mother housing,
The
so
granny units,
granny
yeah.
units. Thank you. So an extra unit onto their lot, where
Yeah.
before that was not allowed if you have a certain size lot, but
Yeah.
now it's okay. So that's a good change.
Yeah, it's a great change. I mean, it was always it was allowed in some form, but they had what are called setbacks, how far you have to be from neighboring homes.
Right.
It was so restrictive that for practical purposes, most homes didn't have backyards big enough.
Yeah.
But they relaxed some of the rules so that we can build more granny units, because we're not, in some of the single family
Yeah.
neighborhoods, we're not going to be building high rises and condos.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to add capacity is through granny units, and it allows also that multi-generational aspect where you can keep your family in your home with a little bit of independence.
You also mentioned, you know, it seems like we're moving from an agriculture to an urbanization in San Jose with such an expensive housing market and us having to resort to, you know, share phone, like renting out rooms. How has that change impacted like the rest of the community in San Jose and our culture? And how is that compared to the rest of the country where they wouldn't have to do that?
I came here to the U.S. in '78 to San Jose. It was the same time a lot of Vietnamese were coming as well, in the late '70s, early '80s, and we all came to this place that was amazing because you would see orchards and then homes and orchards. It was a lot of open spaces. It was very different. We went from the Valley of Heart's Delight, the best agriculture in the world, to Silicon Valley over a relatively short time period.
Yeah.
And so now we see these extraordinarily high housing costs, and part of the reason we don't have enough housing is that back then they spread out. They built all these single family detached neighborhoods that were built for automobiles, they were built for single families. They weren't built for the urban communities that we're now trying to build.
So is that more considered like suburban neighborhoods?
Exactly. Yeah. So they're built suburban, but suburban neighborhoods aren't good when you're growing as a population.
Right.
So now you may notice in downtown, and not just downtown, along San Carlos, along North First Street, even down where I live in South San Jose, and you see this in a lot of suburban communities. They're building more urban villages and urban environments because we have to, but also because I think newer generations that are coming into the workforce, they want a more urban lifestyle.
Urban can also mean going up instead of across, right?
Right.
Exactly, that's right.
And the issue that I see too with the growth like this is parking. Parking's crazy, and
You do not want to be like San Francisco.
right.
No.
And in the regular homes where they have multiple families and building the granny units and all that, where are they going to park? It's an issue.
Well,
right?
we already see it. You go to East San Jose, you go to certain parts of Central San Jose, South San Jose, and you cannot find parking. People put cones out in front of their house to reserve spots and all that. But I think ultimately traffic patterns will change in terms of traffic because of automated vehicles and people hopefully using more public transit.
They're bringing BART in too, right?
Yes, can't wait for that.
You have another comment?
Yep. Thomas asks, what are the plans for San Jose to build more affordable housings? And how had multi-generational households impacting the local neighborhoods such as parking, parks, and recs?
Yeah, and we just touched upon some of the parking issues as well as all facilities, whether it's schools, parks, open spaces. Obviously, the more density you have, especially in suburban neighborhoods that weren't designed to have 10, 15 people living in every home. They were designed for the nuclear family, for 2 parents, a dog, and 2 kids, right? And that's not the reality of, first of all, what the Asian American community does, but also the reality of the finances. And,
From a state level, is the state doing something?
Yeah, and so in terms of what San Jose and the state is doing, so we used to have something called the redevelopment agency that pumped in literally tens of millions of dollars a year for us to build affordable housing.
Yeah.
It went away during the recession. So now we lost that funding source. So we saw the county pass a $1 billion housing bond to help homeless get into housing.
Yeah.
Right now I'm working on a bill, I'm a joint author with Senator David Chu in San Francisco that would bring over $300 million to build housing, more affordable housing. There's another bill from the Senate side that will bring another 200 or 300 million.
Yeah.
But so even if you bring 500-600 million, that's still not enough. And so we have to incentivize more affordable housing,
Yeah.
but we also have to incentivize more market rate. We need all kinds of housing because we just don't have enough of it. And other cities besides the big cities of San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose have to do their part. And we see a lot of smaller cities resist building high density and resist building affordable housing. They have to do their share too.
We also came across this vocabulary term called gentrification.
Gentrification, yeah.
Gentrification. And so I wanted to ask you, I didn't know what the word meant myself. I don't think a lot of our audience might know as well. Could you kind of elaborate on that more?
So gentrification occurs when you see a neighborhood that has traditionally been low income in many cases. And I'll give an example. You look at San Francisco, the Mission District.
Yeah.
There's a great fear of gentrification. It's already starting to happen. A heavily Latino neighborhood had been traditionally low income neighborhood for San Francisco's purposes at least. Housing market around it gets very expensive. People start moving in. They start raising the rents. They start building new condos.
Like luxury apartments.
Exactly. And those that have called that community home, sometimes for many generations, are priced out and leave. We've seen it in San Francisco with the African American Latino community. Yeah. We're seeing it in Oakland in some cases with the African American community. And I'm very worried that we're going to start seeing more of it here in San Jose with the East Side, Little Saigon, Alviso in North San Jose. There was an article in the Mercury News about that already happening there. And so we have to be very cautious that when we're looking to grow our community and build housing, that we don't lose what makes the character of the city, and that is our diversity, and we don't push out families that have been here for many generations. Yeah. And I've seen it happening just west of downtown. There's a wonderful neighborhood, mostly Latino, but now we're seeing a lot of tech folks moving in there and buying these homes, fixing them up, and
raising the prices.
Yeah. And we're going to see gentrification start occurring unless we're thoughtful about how we do our planning going forward.
Great. Well, let's thank our sponsor again. And especially with Section 8 housing, what I've learned from him is it doesn't mean that rent control doesn't mean that now you're going to list something at lower than market. No. It's at market. Yeah. Right? And you also get to raise that every year, but within limitations. So, work with your real estate agent and with the government by the city to figure out rules about that. So if you have places for lease, consider that. And if you call Thomas Vo, he can definitely help you and get you all the information you need. And his phone number is 408-505-6278. And his website?
His website is thomasvorealtor.com. We'll provide it in the description. But he has proven time and time again that his in-depth knowledge of the market, ethical business practices, and strong negotiation skills, he has proven that with his commitment to servicing you and your family's needs. And so there are many things important to Thomas, one of which is honesty, dedication, professionalism, market knowledge, like I mentioned, and of course, attention to details. And so if you want more information on Thomas Vo, please do visit thomasvorealtor.com.
And the cookies.
And the cookies.
Cookies. Bring one for me too, please.
And he is a broker. So the difference is he does have more in-depth knowledge of the market and how the laws are. And that's very important right now. You don't want a lawsuit, trust me.
Yeah, and don't forget to like our Facebook page, Chopsticks Alley. Follow us on Instagram at Chopsticks Alley as well. And if you want to visit our website, we have tons of articles. We're coming out with a podcast production. And of course, you can watch all our previous episodes of Chopsticks Alley Talk. And that's chopsticksalley.com.
Well, let's get back to our topic here. Let's talk about the new Vietnamese immigrants who come over. And then there's eviction. And then there's homelessness. So can you share a little bit about eviction laws or something?
Sure. Well, the laws are actually very much in favor of tenants. Actually, I represented tenants when I was in law school in Washington, D.C., and there were a lot of slumlords in D.C., and I used to represent the tenants against these slumlords that were trying to evict them. So tenants have a lot of rights, they just don't know they have those rights. So the reality is that if you complain about a condition of your home and then the landlord all of a sudden says, hey, I want to evict you, that's retaliatory, it's against the law. You have the right to live in a safe place. You don't have to have all the frills, you don't have to have a hot tub and all that, but there are certain conditions that are required. It's called the implied warranty of habitability that everyone is entitled to. And if you don't have a habitable place, whether there's building code violations, electrical issues, the heater, or the what have you is not working, the hot water is not working, those are conditions that the landlord must fix promptly. And you do have the right to actually withhold rent, or at least a portion of rent, until those conditions are fixed.
What about people who lease out their home? Like, what's their protection? What's their rights?
Right, because I think from a perspective of we want more people to rent out their homes, right? So
that's right, and there are. I mean, that's what you make the lease contract about. I mean, there's no doubt that the rules may be in favor of tenants, but they're not. It doesn't mean the tenants can do whatever they want. And so there are certainly protections that you must put in your lease agreement. In terms of making very clear what the rules are, making very clear what the conditions are by which you can evict someone, and also making sure what the terms are in terms of cost, the monthly lease or monthly rent, how many are you doing month to month, are you doing a multi-year, but you really want to vet your tenants and meet with them, go have coffee with them, get a chance to know them. I actually, I have one home I rent to a wonderful family that's been renting for 6 years. And my father, the first home he moved into in '78, he rents that out Section 8 since '85. And he's only rented to 2 families since '85. And they've been wonderful, taking care of the property. And he feels good. He's renting out below market, but he feels good that he's actually helping families that otherwise couldn't afford to be there. But it's all about that relationship, just like anything else. You want to have a relationship with your tenants. Don't feel like you're this landlord. Build a friendship so that when issues come up, you resolve them quickly, and they continue to pay the rent, and you take care of them. It's their home while they're there, right?
I think we have a question.
We have another comment from Thomas saying, we have tenants being evicted so the buildings can be remodeled and the landlords can charge higher prices. How are the tenants protected in this situation, if at all?
Yeah, the landlords do have the right to do remodels. And if it's a major remodel, they can actually re-rent it, but there's some certain conditions to that as well. In San Jose, there really are only rent control protections on multifamily, on fourplexes and larger from 79 and earlier, 1979 earlier. But there are still tenant protections in terms of those that live in newer accommodations as well. And so it depends on the nature and extent of the remodel. Of course, if it's a tear down and rebuild, then yes, that could be a situation where you would be asked to find another place, or asked to leave and have to find another place. But if there's a sense that there are some surface level renovations being done just for the specific purpose of getting someone out of a rent controlled apartment so you can re-rent it, that could be an issue, and I would suggest that tenants contact the city of San Jose or whatever city or county they live in to determine if this is actually something that's being done honestly in good faith, or as a ruse to kind of get out their tenants.
Well, Palo Alto, I know that they voted recently to not build more housing. And so, there's not enough housing being built, there's not enough supply and demand. And so, what are some other struggles of housing affordability?
It's actually even worse than that, in my opinion. The city council voted for senior affordable housing. The residents, and some of them that are NIMBYs, not in my backyard residents, put on the ballot to overturn the council decision. And so I think some of the things at the state level that we're looking at is limiting the ability for residents to overturn that kind of council decision. We're also looking for ways to, if someone wants to build affordable housing, it's called by right. And what that means is basically that there's a limitation on what cities can do to stop it. They still have local control. The neighbors can still voice their objections or their opinions. But we have to have jurisdictions like Palo Alto move forward, because San Jose can't build all the affordable housing for the entire Silicon Valley.
And so the thing is, from, let's say, if I own a home, I want to protect the property value. And so the thought of having Section 8 or low-income housing near me, I don't like that, right? So it's such a difficult thing, because you want to protect the people who own the homes, and then you also want to give the low-income folks a chance. So the delicate balance.
I think we have to rethink what affordable housing is. I think people think about like the old 70s TV shows and the projects in Chicago. Seriously,
she wasn't born yet, so
I know, yeah. But they think about like the projects in Chicago or New York. That's not affordable housing. Affordable housing, we're talking about families that have trouble finding a place here because it's so expensive for all of us.
Right, so they have jobs. It's not right. It's just that they can't afford this crazy rent.
We're talking about nurses, we're talking about teachers, janitors. We're talking about people that are accountants, administrative assistants. Even entry-level engineers can qualify. I serve on the board of the Housing Trust of Silicon Valley that tries to help first-time home buyers and families get into homes. And you can be making $90,000 or potentially even more and still qualify for affordable housing in this valley.
Right.
So that's one aspect of it. And I think the stigmatization of the poor as well. The working poor, these are some of the hardest working folks. Imagine having to live on $30,000 a year or less sometimes in Silicon Valley and raise your family.
There's no way. It's not possible.
And so we want to give them a hand up in a way that gives them stability so that their kids have better opportunities.
Right, and I think at San Jose or Silicon Valley, the median price for homes is $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, I mean, who can afford that if the median price is $1 million? That's crazy. Anyways, let's talk about some more fun stuff. I like that stuff. So, odd behaviors, right?
We wanted to go over odd behaviors and some family dynamics that occur in multi-generational households, whether it's in the Asian community, particularly the Vietnamese community.
So, have you been in the Vietnamese household where the plastic is still on things?
Yes.
Please
On
describe.
the remote controls. On the tables, the share sofas. And there are plenty of Indian households where I've seen that same thing.
So what is that? The fear of it will wear out? Or what is that?
It's that and just protecting, like you pay money for something and you want to make sure it stays like new.
You don't want to use it.
Yes, it's kind of like not using the nice china, right? Or the nice silverware, right? And so I remember growing up, we weren't supposed to sit in the living room with the nicer furniture. With this,
where the vacuum marks are still there, right? Like, don't touch. I know you've been there. I see footsteps. Right?
Another one in Vietnamese household I see a lot is karaoke on a weeknight.
Oh my god!
My household, whether or not there is an audience,
but are you singing? Or are you listening?
No. I'm upstairs. I'm doing neither.
See, I had a whole other level. My mom actually sang in a band. She used to sing and perform around the Bay Area throughout the 80s. So when I was a kid, sometimes there'd be practice till like midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning.
It never happened.
Yeah.
It's hard, and if you want privacy, right? And then mom just like bursts in the room, and you're like, oh.
Oh yeah, there's no such thing as a locked door.
No,
you can't. You don't have locks in your door.
The whole American movies I watch, where the kid slams the door and locks it. No. Okay, Asian household, no.
Can I ask you, did you used to have like a drawer that had all the plastic bags? Like
that we saved.
You saved every plastic bag.
Yes.
You open it, they come like it's overflowing.
We've actually upgraded. Now we have this thing we purchased from IKEA where it's stuck on the wall and you can professionally pull a plastic bag out.
Very classy. I'm guilty of the plastic things. I can't get rid of them. I just can't make myself get rid of plastic Tupperware. Even if it's like so old, like spaghetti stain, the orange, I can't get rid of them.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas now.
No, but we have you have a container. If it's like we used to have. If it's a yogurt container, you open it. There's no guarantee yogurt's in there. It could be anything, right?
Anything. That's right.
We used to have the metal. What's that? The butter cookies. That metal tin.
Yeah.
You open it and it had all the sewing
kits.
Yeah.
I don't know why in Indian and Vietnamese we put sewing kits in there. Oh my gosh. Anyways, let's thank Thomas Vo, Realtor, again for sponsoring our spots, because without him this show would not be possible.
Yes, and so again, if you want Thomas to be your realtor for life, he is mine. You can visit thomasvorealtor.com or give him a call at 408-505-6278.
Thank you so much. But before we take off here, I think I have one last question for you. So, everyone wants to know if you're single, getting married, what's going on?
I'm single. I'm married to my job right now.
Married to his job. Yeah. Still politically correct answer. We will find out next time.
I think my dad's watching. I have to be careful.
Oh, okay.
So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Chopsticks Alley at Facebook, Instagram, and of course visit our website. And my closing remarks for today is that multi-generational households, it's both rewarding and challenging. Communication is key, and so I hope that if you are living in one, that you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And last remarks?
Thank you so much. These are important issues to talk about. You can talk about them and still have fun, but let's take care of each other, take care of our families.
Yep, so remember, what you think about, you bring about. So think good thoughts. Have a great day, everybody. Bye. That was good. I threw you in, right?
You know, that was probably the first question you planned.
I'm going to answer
of this
that.
whole.
That's right. That's the only reason we brought you up here.
I know.